Get on your knees. Victoria Thornton's voice cut through the wedding ceremony like a blade. 350 guests fell silent. Elena stood frozen in her white wedding dress halfway down the aisle as her mother-in-law blocked her path. Crawl to my son. Prove you deserve the Thornton name. Elena looked at Marcus, the man she loved, the man she had given everything for. He looked away. Her father sat in a wheelchair behind her, dying of cancer, the only reason she had agreed to this wedding. Victoria smiled. Unless your father's life means nothing to you. If you love stories about revenge betrayal and women who rise from the ashes to destroy those who tried to break them, you need to stay until the very end. Subscribe to this channel right now and comment the city you are watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Trust me, you will not believe what happens next. Elena Carter had never believed in fairy tales. Growing up in a 2-bedroom apartment above her father's auto repair shop, she learned early that life was about hard work, sacrifice, and getting through each day without falling apart. Her mother, Helen, worked double shifts at the grocery store. Her father, Richard, spent 12 hours a day under cars, coming home with grease-stained hands and a tired smile. They never had much, but they had each other. Elena became a nurse because she wanted to help people who reminded her of her own family. The ones who came into the emergency room scared and broke, wondering how they would pay for treatment. The ones the system forgot about. At 24, she was working the night shift at St. Matthew's Hospital, running on coffee and determination. She had been there for 2 years, and she had seen everything. Gunshot wounds, overdoses, car accidents, heart attacks. She held hands and wiped tears and told people everything would be okay, even when she knew it would not. That was the night she met Marcus Thornton. He walked into the ER at 3 in the morning, not as a patient, but as the new attending surgeon. Elena noticed him immediately. Tall, dark-haired, confident without being arrogant. He wore his white coat like he belonged in it, but there was something different about him. Something softer. Dr. Marcus Thornton. The charge nurse introduced him. He is transferring from Boston General. Try not to scare him off. Elena barely looked up from her charts. Welcome to the chaos. Marcus laughed. A real laugh, not the polished chuckle she heard from most doctors. I think I will like it here. Over the next few weeks, Elena tried to ignore him. She had seen too many nurses fall for doctors, watched those relationships crash and burn under the pressure of hospital politics and long hours. She was not going to be one of them. But Marcus made it difficult. He started showing up during her breaks, bringing coffee from the good machine on the 3rd floor. He asked about her patients, not in a supervisory way, but like he actually cared. He remembered details. The elderly woman with pneumonia, the teenager who overdosed, the homeless man who needed stitches. You treat them differently, Marcus said one night. They were sitting in the empty cafeteria, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. The patients without insurance, the ones everyone else rushes through. You actually look at them. Elena shrugged. They are still people. Most nurses do not see it that way. Most nurses have not been those people. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Tell me about your family. She did not know why she trusted him, but she did. She told him about her father's shop, about her mother's calloused hands, about growing up counting pennies, and learning that dignity had nothing to do with money. She told him about the patients who reminded her of her parents, the ones who apologized for not being able to pay as if their lives were worth less because their wallets were empty. Marcus listened. He did not interrupt. He did not offer solutions or platitudes. He just listened. When she finished, he said, You are extraordinary. Elena laughed. I'm exhausted. There is a difference. No. Marcus shook his head. I have worked in hospitals my whole career. I have never met anyone like you. That was the night everything changed. They started spending more time together. Coffee breaks turned into dinners. Dinners turned into long walks through the city after their shifts ended. Marcus told her about his childhood, about growing up with money, but without warmth, about a mother who measured success in zeros, and a father who died when he was 12. My mother runs Thornton Medical Group, he said one night. 5 hospitals, thousands of employees. She built it from nothing after my father passed. Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. Thornton Medical. She knew that name. Everyone in the city knew that name. It was on buildings and billboards and the sides of ambulances. It was one of the biggest private healthcare networks in the state. You are a Thornton, she said slowly. Marcus nodded. I did not tell you because I wanted you to know me first. Not my family, not the money, just me. Elena understood that. She had seen how people treated wealth, the way they changed, became smaller or greedier or both. She did not want to be one of those people. It does not matter, she said. I fell for the guy who brings me coffee and remembers my patients' names, not the guy on the hospital letterhead. Marcus smiled. The relief in his eyes was so clear it almost broke her heart. For 6 months, they were happy. Marcus kept his family at a distance, and Elena did not push. They existed in their own world, built on late-night conversations and shared patience, and a love that felt too good to be true. Then her father got sick. Richard Carter had been coughing for months. He blamed it on the fumes from the shop, the cold weather, anything but the truth. When Elena finally convinced him to see a doctor, the diagnosis came fast and brutal. Stage 3, lung cancer. Elena stood in the hallway outside his hospital room, the words echoing in her head. Stage 3, aggressive. Treatment options limited. Her mother was inside holding Richard's hand, trying not to cry. Marcus found her there. He pulled her into his arms without saying anything, and she broke. All the strength she showed to her patients, to her parents, to the world, it crumbled in that moment. She sobbed into his chest until she could not breathe. We will figure this out, Marcus said. I promise. Elena pulled back. The treatment he needs, the surgery, the specialists, we cannot afford it. I will help. No. Elena shook her head. I am not taking your money. It is not charity. He cupped her face in his hands. I love you. Your family is my family. Let me help. She wanted to say no. Every instinct told her to refuse to handle this on her own to protect her pride. But this was her father's life. She could not let him die for the sake of her ego. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Marcus made calls. Suddenly, Richard had an appointment with the best oncologist in the city. The treatment plan was aggressive but hopeful. Elena did not ask how much it cost. She did not want to know. 3 months later, Marcus proposed. They were sitting on the roof of her parents' apartment building, the same place she had escaped to as a teenager when she needed to think. The city stretched out below them, lights flickering like earthbound stars. Marcus got down on one knee. Elena Carter. I do not have a speech prepared because everything I want to say is too big for words. You make me want to be better. You make me believe I can be. Will you marry me? Elena said yes before he finished the question. For one perfect moment, she was happy. She imagined their future. A small wedding. Her father walking her down the aisle. A life built on love and purpose. Then Marcus told his mother. Victoria Thornton's response was immediate and explosive. You will not marry that woman, she said. Marcus called Elena that night, his voice tight with anger and pain. My mother said she will cut me off. Remove me from the company. Take back everything if I go through with this. What did you say I told her I love you? That is not going to change. Elena's heart soared, but something dark whispered underneath. She had never met Victoria Thornton, but she had heard stories. A woman who built an empire through ruthlessness and control. A woman who did not lose. Maybe we should talk to her, Elena said. Let her meet me. Maybe she will change her mind. Marcus was quiet for a long time. She will not, he finally said. But we can try. The meeting was arranged for the following weekend. Dinner at the Thornton estate, a mansion that looked like it belonged in a magazine, all marble floors and crystal chandeliers, and art that cost more than Elena's parents made in a decade. Victoria was waiting in the sitting room when they arrived. She was in her early 60s, impeccably dressed with silver hair and eyes that seemed to calculate everything they saw. She did not stand when Elena entered. She did not smile. So, Victoria's voice was cool. This is the nurse, Elena. Marcus's tone carried a warning. This is Elena. Victoria ignored him. She looked Elena up and down the way you might examine a stain on an expensive carpet. Sit down. Elena sat. Her palms were sweating. She told herself to stay calm, to be polite, to give Victoria no reason to hate her. Tell me about your family. Victoria did not bother with small talk. My father owns an auto repair shop. My mother works at a grocery store. Elena kept her voice steady. They are good people. I am sure they are. The condescension dripped from every syllable. And your education? I have a nursing degree from City College. City College. Victoria repeated it like it was a disease. And you thought that qualified you to marry my son. I love your son. That is my qualification. Victoria laughed, a short, sharp sound with no warmth. Love. How charming. Do you know how much this family is worth? Do you have any idea what you would be marrying into? I am marrying Marcus. Not your money. How naive. Victoria leaned forward. You are marrying everything, whether you understand it or not. The name, the expectations, the obligations. And you think a little nurse from a garage family can handle that? Elena felt the anger rising in her chest. With respect, Mrs. Thornton, I think you should give me a chance before you decide what I can handle. The room went cold. Victoria's eyes narrowed to slits. Marcus jumped in. Mom, Elena is incredible at her job. She works harder than anyone I know. She genuinely cares about people. She cares about your money. That is not true. Elena stood. I did not even know about the money until we had been together for months. I fell in love with Marcus before I knew anything about this. She gestured around the room. If you cannot see that, then I feel sorry for you. Victoria's expression did not change, but something shifted behind her eyes. Something calculating. Sit down, she said quietly. Elena hesitated, then sat. Victoria was silent for a long moment. Then she said, Perhaps I was too hasty. Marcus has spoken highly of you. Maybe I should give you a chance to prove yourself. Marcus exhaled with relief. Mom, thank you. I will plan the wedding myself. Victoria smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. Something appropriate for the Thornton name. A proper event. You will see, my dear. I can be very generous when I want to be. Elena should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt a chill run down her spine. Thank you, she said carefully. That is very kind. Victoria waved a hand. Family takes care of family. Speaking of which, I understand your father is unwell. Elena nodded her guard, going up. He has cancer. He is undergoing treatment. At which hospital? St. Catherine's. Victoria tilted her head. A public hospital. How unfortunate. The wait times alone must be terrible. She paused. Thornton Medical has the best oncology department in the region. If you were family well, your father would have access to the finest care available. The implication hung in the air. Elena understood perfectly. This was not generosity. This was leverage. That would be wonderful. Elena forced a smile. Thank you. Of course, dear. Victoria's eyes glittered. We will discuss the details after the engagement is official. There is no rush. But there was a rush. Richard's cancer was advancing. The treatments at St. Catherine's were helping, but he needed surgery, specialized care that the public hospital could not provide. Every day of waiting was a day the cancer could spread. Elena left the mansion that night feeling like she had walked into a trap. She did not tell Marcus about her fears. He was so happy that his mother had accepted her, so relieved that the war was over. How could she tell him that she did not trust Victoria? That every instinct she had was screaming danger. Instead, she buried her doubts and focused on the wedding. Victoria took control immediately. She chose the venue, a luxury hotel owned by the Thornton family. She created the guest list, 350 people, all of them wealthy elites from her social circle. She selected the decorations, the flowers, the menu. Every time Elena suggested something, Victoria smiled that cold smile and said, Let me handle this, dear. You would not understand how things are done in our world. Elena tried to include her own family in the planning. Her mother had spent weeks sewing table decorations by hand, delicate lace pieces that she hoped would add a personal touch. When she presented them to Victoria, the older woman barely glanced at them. How quaint. Victoria set them aside. I am sure we can find somewhere to put them. Perhaps in the service area. Helen's face fell. Elena felt her hands curl into fists. My mother worked very hard on those, she said quietly. Victoria's smile did not waver. I am sure she did. But this is a Thornton wedding, dear. We have certain standards to maintain. That night, Elena found her mother crying in the bathroom. Maybe we should not come, Helen said. We do not belong in that world. You belong wherever I am. Elena held her. This is my wedding. You are my family. Nothing else matters. But even as she said it, she wondered if it was true. The weeks leading up to the wedding became a blur of small humiliations. Victoria scheduled fittings when Elena was working, then complained that she never participated. She invited Elena to tea with her society friends, where the women asked pointed questions about her background and exchanged knowing looks. A nurse, one of them said, as if it were a profession that involved shoveling sewage. How practical. At least she will be useful when we are old and need our bedpans changed. They laughed, and Victoria laughed with them. Elena endured it all. She reminded herself that it was temporary, that once the wedding was over, she and Marcus could build their own life. She just had to get through it. But then her father's health took a turn. Richard collapsed at the shop, coughing blood. He was rushed to the hospital, and the doctors delivered devastating news. The cancer had spread. He needed surgery immediately, a complex procedure that St. Catherine's was not equipped to handle. The only hospital in the region with the right specialists was Thornton Medical. Elena went to Victoria that same day. She found her in the mansion's study, reviewing wedding invitations. Please, Elena said. My father is dying. He needs surgery that only your hospital can provide. Please help him. Victoria did not look up from her papers. I told you, dear. Family helps family. Once you are married to Marcus, your father will have access to everything he needs. He does not have time. The doctors say he needs surgery within the week. Victoria finally looked at her. Her eyes were flat, expressionless. The wedding is in 3 weeks. I am sure he can wait. Elena felt the floor tilt beneath her. You are going to let him die because of a wedding date. I am not letting anyone die. Victoria's voice was ice. I am simply reminding you of priorities. The wedding comes first, then your father's treatment. That is my offer. Elena wanted to scream, to flip the table, to grab Victoria by her designer collar and shake her until she understood what she was asking. But she could not. This woman held her father's life in her hands. Fine. Elena's voice came out strangled. Fine. The wedding comes first. Victoria smiled. I knew you would see reason. Now about the ceremony. I have a few ideas I would like to discuss. Elena sat and listened to wedding plans while her father lay dying in a hospital bed. She nodded in all the right places and said yes to everything Victoria suggested. Inside, something was breaking. That night, she went to Marcus. She told him everything: Victoria's ultimatum, the way she was using Richard's illness as leverage, the cruel calculation behind her fake acceptance. Marcus listened, his face growing pale. When Elena finished, he was silent for a long time. She would not do that, he finally said. My mother is difficult, but she would not let someone die over a wedding, she told me herself. Elena grabbed his hands. Marcus, you have to believe me. Maybe you misunderstood. He pulled away, and Elena felt her heart crack. Mom has been so supportive about the wedding. She is paying for everything. Why would she do that if she wanted to sabotage us? Because she wants control. Elena's voice broke. She wants to make sure I know my place. Do you not see that I see that you are stressed? Marcus's tone was gentle but dismissive. Your father is sick. The wedding is coming. It is a lot of pressure. Maybe you are reading things into my mother's words that are not there. Elena stared at him. The man she loved, the man she had trusted with everything, was choosing his mother's narrative over hers. I am not imagining this, she said quietly. Maybe you should get some rest. Marcus kissed her forehead. Everything will look different in the morning. It did not look different. It looked worse. The wedding day arrived, and Elena woke with a feeling of dread she could not shake. Her father had stabilized enough to attend, though he was weak and confined to a wheelchair. Her mother had sewn a new dress after Victoria's friends ruined the first one with spilled wine at the rehearsal dinner. They looked hopeful, her parents so proud of their daughter, marrying into money. They did not know what Elena knew. They did not see the trap closing around them. The ceremony was set for 4 p.m. 350 guests filled the grand ballroom of the Thornton Hotel, all of them dripping in diamonds and designer labels. Elena's family sat in the back corner, a small island of ordinary people in a sea of wealth. Victoria had insisted on live streaming the ceremony. For the family members who cannot attend, she explained. Now Elena understood the real reason. Victoria wanted witnesses, as many as possible. The music began. Elena stood at the entrance of the aisle, her father beside her in his wheelchair. Richard's hand was thin and trembling, but his grip was strong. "I am so proud of you," he whispered. Elena could not speak. She was terrified and she did not know why. They started down the aisle. The guests turned to watch faces polite and distant. Elena focused on Marcus at the altar, tried to draw strength from his presence. Then Victoria stepped into her path. "Stop." The music cut out. The silence was instant and absolute. Victoria stood in the middle of the aisle, blocking Elena's way. She was wearing a blue gown that probably cost more than Richard's medical bills. Her face was serene, almost pleased. "There is something wrong," Victoria announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. "A tradition has been neglected." Elena's blood went cold. In the Thornton family, Victoria continued, a bride must prove her devotion before she is accepted. She must show that she is worthy. Marcus stepped forward from the altar. "Mom, what are you doing?" "What I should have done from the beginning." Victoria did not look at her son. She kept her eyes locked on Elena. "Get on your knees." The room gasped. Elena heard the phones coming out, the soft clicks of recording. "Crawl to my son." Victoria's smile widened. "Prove you are worthy of the Thornton name." Elena could not move. This was not happening. This could not be happening. "Mom, stop this." Marcus's voice was weak. "You cannot be serious." "I am perfectly serious." Victoria gestured toward Elena. "Your little nurse wants to be part of this family. She can earn it, on her hands and knees, like the dog she is." Elena looked at Marcus, begging him with her eyes to stop this, to stand up to his mother, to save her from this nightmare. Marcus looked away. Victoria leaned close to Elena, close enough that only she could hear. "Your father needs surgery in 3 days. Thornton Medical is the only place that can save him. Crawl or he dies." Elena's world collapsed. She looked at her father, at his frail body and his frightened eyes. She looked at her mother, clutching Richard's hand, tears streaming down her face. She looked at the 350 guests, their phones raised, waiting to capture her humiliation. And she understood. This had never been about the wedding. This had been about power. Victoria wanted to break her, to show her exactly who controlled her fate, and there was nothing Elena could do. She dropped to her knees. The gasps were audible now, rippling through the crowd. Elena began to crawl her white dress, dragging on the marble floor, her hands scraping against the cold stone. Victoria walked beside her, narrating. "Look at her. The bride's so desperate for our money. See how she crawls." This is what happens when trash tries to rise above its station. The guests laughed. Some of them actually laughed. Elena's tears fell onto the marble, but she kept moving. For her father. For the surgery he needed. For his life. When she finally reached Marcus, she looked up at him with everything she had left. He still would not meet her eyes. Victoria clapped her hands. "Actually, I have changed my mind." What Elena felt the hope drain out of her. "Look at her." Victoria addressed the guests. "Is this really what you want as a Thornton wife?" "This crawling creature from the gutter?" Marcus said nothing. "The wedding is canceled." Victoria snapped her fingers and security guards appeared from the sides of the room. "Remove them. All of them." Elena screamed as hands grabbed her arms. She watched security drag her father's wheelchair toward the exit, watched her mother stumble after them, watched her entire world shatter in front of an audience. "Wait," Elena fought against the guards. "You promised his surgery? You promised." Victoria laughed. "I promised nothing. Did you really think I would let my son marry the daughter of a grease monkey and a grocery clerk? You should have known your place." Elena was thrown out of the hotel in her wedding dress, landing on the pavement outside. Her parents were dumped beside her Richard's wheelchair, tipping over Helen, crying and trying to help him up. The doors closed behind them, and the cameras kept rolling. 500,000 people watched the live stream. Within hours, the hashtag crawling bride was trending nationwide. Elena Carter, the desperate gold digger who got what she deserved. That was the narrative. That was the story. She lay on the cold pavement in her torn wedding dress, surrounded by her broken family, and she understood something with perfect clarity. The old Elena was dead, and whoever rose from these ashes would never let anyone make her crawl again. The ambulance arrived 17 minutes after Elena's father collapsed on the pavement. His wheelchair had tipped over when security threw them out, and his head had struck the concrete. Blood pooled beneath his temple while Helen screamed for help and Elena tried to stop the bleeding with her torn wedding dress. The paramedics loaded Richard onto the stretcher while Elena clutched his hand. His eyes were closed, his breathing shallow. The cancer had already weakened him, and now this. Which hospital, the paramedic asked. Thornton Medical has the best trauma unit. Elena's voice was automatic, desperate. Take him there. The paramedic hesitated. Ma'am, that is a private hospital. Do you have insurance that covers it? Elena felt the words die in her throat. No. No, she did not. Victoria had promised access to Thornton Medical. That promise was gone now, thrown out with the rest of her dignity. St. Catherine's, Helen said quietly. Take him to St. Catherine's. The ambulance doors closed, and Elena watched it disappear down the street. She was still wearing her wedding dress, now stained with her father's blood. People on the sidewalk stared at her. Some of them were recording on their phones. Is that her? Someone whispered. The crawling bride, Elena, turned and walked. She did not know where she was going. She just needed to move to escape the eyes and the phones and the laughter that seemed to follow her everywhere. Her phone had been buzzing nonstop since the ceremony. She finally looked at it and saw hundreds of notifications, texts from friends, missed calls from her coworkers, social media alerts that made her stomach turn. The video was everywhere. She watched it just once on a news website. There she was, on her hands and knees, crawling across a marble floor in her white dress. Victoria's voice narrated the whole thing clear as crystal, and the comments underneath were brutal. Gold digger got what she deserved. This is what happens when trash tries to marry money. I cannot stop laughing. Look at her face. Elena threw her phone against a wall. The screen shattered, but the notifications kept coming. They would never stop. She found Helen at the hospital 2 hours later. Her mother was sitting in the waiting room, still wearing the dress she had sewn herself, the one that had taken 3 weeks to make. Her eyes were red and swollen. How is he? Elena asked. Stable. Helen's voice was hollow. The fall caused a brain bleed. They are monitoring him, but he is too weak for surgery right now. Elena sank into the chair beside her mother. This is my fault. Do not say that. I should have seen it coming. Elena's hands were shaking. I knew Victoria hated me. I knew she was using Dad's illness as leverage. And I still walked down that aisle like an idiot. You are not an idiot. Helen grabbed her daughter's hands. You were trying to save your father. That is what love does. It makes us vulnerable. Look where it got us. Elena laughed bitterly. Dad is in the hospital because of me. My face is all over the internet. I have nothing left. You have me. Helen squeezed her hands. You have your father. We will get through this together. But even as she said it, Elena could see the fear in her mother's eyes. They were drowning, and there was no one left to save them. The next morning, Elena went to work. She needed the money. She needed the distraction. She needed to feel like she was still a person, not just a viral joke. She put on her scrubs, covered her swollen eyes with makeup, and walked into St. Matthew's Hospital like it was any other day. It was not. The whisper started the moment she entered the building. Nurses she had worked with for years avoided her eyes. Doctors she had respected snickered as she passed. By the time she reached the locker room, her hands were shaking so badly she could barely open her combination. Elena. Her charge nurse appeared in the doorway. The supervisor wants to see you. Now. Elena followed her to the administrative office, her heart pounding. She knew what was coming. She had known it the moment she saw the looks on her coworkers' faces. The supervisor was a gray-haired woman named Margaret, who had always been fair to Elena. Now she sat behind her desk with a folder in front of her and an expression of forced sympathy. Please sit down, Margaret said. Elena sat. I assume you know why you are here. The video. Margaret nodded. St. Matthew's Hospital has a reputation to maintain. When staff members become subjects of public controversy, it reflects on the institution. I was the victim. Elena's voice cracked. Did you watch the video that woman forced me to crawl? She humiliated me in front of hundreds of people. I understand that. Margaret's tone was careful. But the hospital board has received complaints. Patients do not want to be treated by someone they recognize from a viral video. Donors are concerned about the association. Elena felt the floor dropping out from under her. You are firing me. We are placing you on indefinite administrative leave. Margaret slid a paper across the desk. With full benefits until the situation resolves. Resolves how Elena stared at the paper. This is never going to resolve. Those videos will be online forever. I am sorry, Elena. Margaret's voice softened. This is not personal. You were one of our best nurses. But the board has made its decision. Elena did not sign the paper. She stood up, walked out of the office, and kept walking until she was outside the hospital, standing in the parking lot where she had first met Marcus 2 years ago. She had lost everything. Her wedding, her dignity, her father's health, and now her job. She stood there for a long time watching the ambulances come and go, watching the patients and families and doctors move through their lives like nothing was wrong. The world kept turning and she was falling off the edge. Her phone rang. A new phone, a cheap one she had bought that morning to replace the one she had destroyed. She did not recognize the number. Hello, Elena Carter. A man's voice, professional and cold. Who is this? My name is David Chen. I am an attorney representing Thornton Medical Group. Elena's blood went ice cold. What do you want? My client wishes to inform you that any attempt to pursue legal action against Victoria Thornton or Thornton Medical will be met with immediate countermeasures. We have documentation of your attempts to defraud the Thornton family by concealing your true financial situation and manipulating Marcus Thornton into a relationship. That is a lie. Furthermore, the attorney continued as if she had not spoken any public statements you make that could be considered defamatory will result in litigation. Victoria Thornton is prepared to pursue damages in excess of $10 million. Elena could not breathe. She is threatening me after what she did, Mrs. Thornton is protecting her reputation and her family. I suggest you do the same. Accept reality, Miss Carter. Move on with your life. Forget the Thorntons ever existed. The line went dead. Elena stared at her phone. The screen reflected her face, pale and hollow and utterly defeated. Victoria was not satisfied with destroying her. She wanted to make sure Elena could never fight back. The weeks that followed were the darkest of Elena's life. She could not find work. Every hospital she applied to knew about the video. Every hiring manager looked at her with that same expression of recognition and discomfort. She was the crawling bride, the gold digger, the joke. Her father's condition worsened. The brain bleed had caused complications, and the doctors at St. Catherine's were doing their best, but they did not have the equipment or the specialists that Thornton Medical had. Richard needed surgery, but he was too weak. He needed medication, but the costs were astronomical. He needed hope, but there was none left to give. Helen took on extra shifts at the grocery store. She worked from 5 in the morning until 10 at night, coming home with swollen feet and hands that cracked and bled from the cold. She never complained, but Elena saw the exhaustion in her eyes. I will find something, Elena told her mother one night. I will figure this out. You need to rest. Helen touched her daughter's face. You have been through trauma. Your body needs time to heal. Dad does not have time. Elena spent her nights researching legal options, but David Chen had made it clear that Victoria's lawyers would crush her. Medical options, but the treatments Richard needed were beyond their reach. Financial options, but their credit was destroyed and no one would give them a loan. She was trapped in every direction. One night, she found herself on the roof of her parents' apartment building, the same place Marcus had proposed to her. The city spread out below, indifferent to her suffering. She wondered what it would feel like to fall. The thought scared her more than anything Victoria had done. She stepped back from the edge, shaking, and sat down on the cold concrete. This was not who she was. She was a fighter. She had always been a fighter. But fighters needed something to fight for. And right now, she had nothing. Elena. She looked up. Her father was standing in the doorway, leaning heavily on a cane. He should have been in bed, but he had somehow climbed the stairs to find her. "Dad, what are you doing? You should not be up here." Richard shuffled over and sat down beside her. "I know that look," he said quietly. "Your mother had that look once when you were a baby, when we lost the shop the first time and did not know how we would feed you." "What did she do?" She got angry. Richard's eyes were fierce despite his weakness. She stopped feeling sorry for herself and started fighting. That is what Carters do. We get knocked down and we get back up. "I do not know how to get back up from this." "You figure it out." Richard took her hand. "That woman wanted to break you. Are you going to let her win?" Elena looked at her father, at his thin face and trembling hands and eyes that still burned with stubborn pride. He was dying and he was still fighting. How could she do any less? "No," she said. "No, I am not." "Good." Richard squeezed her hand. "Now help me back down these stairs before your mother kills us both." The next morning, Elena started over. She could not work as a nurse, so she found other jobs: a waitress at a diner, a night stalker at a pharmacy, a caregiver for an elderly woman who could not afford professional help. She worked 18-hour days, sleeping in 3-hour increments, saving every penny. She started taking online courses in healthcare administration. If she could not treat patients, she would find another way to help them. She studied at night after her shifts, her eyes burning from exhaustion, but her mind sharp with purpose. She started a blog anonymous at first about her experience, not for sympathy, but for others who had gone through similar humiliation. She wrote about toxic families and abusive in-laws and the way wealth was used as a weapon. She wrote about survival. The responses surprised her. "Thank you for sharing this. I thought I was alone. My mother-in-law destroyed my marriage the same way. You gave me the courage to leave. You are not a victim. You are a warrior." The messages kept coming. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Elena's anonymous blog became a community, a gathering place for people who had been broken by family abuse and were learning to rebuild. 6 months after the wedding, a podcast reached out. They wanted to interview her about her experience. They had seen the viral video, but they had also seen her blog. They wanted to tell the real story. Elena said yes. The interview went viral for different reasons than the wedding video. This time, people heard her side. They heard about Victoria's threats, about her father's illness, about the impossible choice she had been forced to make. The narrative shifted. She was not a gold digger anymore. She was a survivor. The donations started coming in. People sent money for her father's treatment. Not much at first, just $10 or $20, but it added up. A GoFundMe page reached $50,000 in a week. A nonprofit for domestic abuse victims offered to cover Richard's surgery. For the first time since the wedding, Elena felt hope. The surgery was scheduled for a Tuesday. Elena sat in the waiting room at St. Catherine's, holding her mother's hand, watching the clock tick by. 3 hours. 4. 5. The surgeon finally emerged, and Elena's heart stopped. But the doctor was smiling. "The surgery was successful," he said. "We removed the tumor and repaired the damage from the brain bleed. Your father is going to need months of recovery, but he is going to live." Elena collapsed into her mother's arms. They cried together, years of fear and pain and hope flooding out in a single moment. Richard Carter was going to live. That night, Elena sat by her father's bedside, watching him sleep. The machines beeped steadily, a rhythm of life. She thought about everything she had lost, everything she had gained, everything she still had to do. Victoria Thornton thought she had destroyed her. The world thought she was a joke. But here she was, still standing still, fighting, still alive. And she was just getting started. Her phone buzzed with a new email. She almost ignored it, but something made her look. "Dear Miss Carter," the email read, "My name is Daniel Hayes. I am the CEO of Hayes Medical Technologies. I saw your podcast interview and was deeply moved by your story. I believe your experience and your passion could change the healthcare industry. I would like to meet with you to discuss an opportunity." Elena stared at the screen. Daniel Hayes, she knew that name. Everyone knew that name. He was the tech billionaire who had revolutionized medical diagnostics, whose company was worth $12 billion, who had come from nothing and built an empire. And he wanted to meet with her. Her first instinct was to refuse. She had learned what happened when she got involved with wealthy families. The destruction, the humiliation, the pain. But something in the email made her pause. She Googled Daniel Hayes, read about his childhood in foster care, his struggle to put himself through college, his commitment to making healthcare accessible to everyone. He was not born into money. He had earned it. And his company, Hayes Medical Technologies, was everything Thornton Medical pretended to be. Affordable, ethical, focused on patients, not profits. She typed a reply before she could talk herself out of it. Mr. Hayes, thank you for your message. I would be honored to meet with you. She hit send. 3 weeks later, she walked into Hayes Medical Technologies headquarters for a meeting that would change her life forever. Daniel Hayes was waiting for her in a simple office, no marble floors or crystal chandeliers, just clean lines and natural light. He stood when she entered, extending his hand with a smile that reached his eyes. Miss Carter, thank you for coming. Elena shook his hand. Thank you for the invitation. Though I have to admit, I'm not sure why I am here. Sit down. He gestured to a chair. I will explain everything. They talked for 3 hours. Daniel told her about his vision for healthcare reform, about the barriers that kept poor families from getting treatment, about his belief that the system needed people who understood suffering from the inside. He told her about a new division he was creating, focused on patient advocacy and community healthcare. And he told her he wanted her to run it. Elena stared at him. You want me to run a division of your company? I am a fired nurse with a viral humiliation video. Why would you trust me with that? Because you know what it is like to be powerless. Daniel's voice was quiet but intense. You know what it is like to beg for help and be refused. You know what it is like to watch someone you love suffer because the system does not care about them. That knowledge is worth more than any degree. Elena felt tears burning in her eyes. I do not know anything about running a company. You will learn, I did. Daniel leaned forward. Miss Carter, I have watched every interview you have given. I have read every post on your blog. I have seen the community you have built from nothing. You have something that cannot be taught. You have the fire. What if I fail? Then you fail. And you get back up. Daniel smiled. That is what you do, is it not? Elena looked at this man, this billionaire who had come from nothing, who was offering her a chance to rebuild her life and help others at the same time. She thought about Victoria Thornton, who had tried to destroy her. She thought about Marcus, who had watched her crawl and said nothing. She thought about all the people who had laughed at her, mocked her, written her off as a joke. And she thought about her father fighting to survive in a hospital bed, telling her that Carters get knocked down and get back up. Yes, she said. I am in. Daniel extended his hand. Welcome to Hayes Medical Technologies, Miss Carter. Elena shook it and something shifted inside her. The broken girl who had crawled across that marble floor was gone. In her place was something new, something harder, something unbreakable. And this was only the beginning. Elena threw herself into the work like her life depended on it, because in many ways it did. The first 3 months at Hayes Medical Technologies were brutal. She knew nothing about corporate structure, nothing about budgets or projections or stakeholder meetings. She stayed late every night studying reports until her eyes blurred, asking questions until her voice went hoarse, making mistakes that cost the company money and cost her sleep. Daniel never criticized her. Not once. You hired the wrong person, Elena told him after a disastrous presentation to the board. I just lost us a $2 million grant because I could not answer basic questions about implementation timelines. You will get the next one, Daniel said calmly. How do you know that? Because you are still here. Daniel looked at her with those steady eyes. Most people would have quit after the first week. You are still fighting. That is all I need to see. Elena did not quit. She studied harder. She asked more questions. She found mentors within the company who taught her the language of business, the rhythms of corporate politics, the art of turning passion into profit. And slowly and possibly, she started to succeed. Her patient advocacy division launched 6 months after she joined. The concept was simple but revolutionary. They would partner with community health centers in low-income areas, providing free diagnostic services using Hayes Medical's technology. No insurance required, no questions asked. Just care. The pilot program served 2,000 patients in its first month. The media coverage was overwhelming. News outlets that had once mocked Elena as the crawling bride now featured her as a healthcare revolutionary. She did interviews, gave speeches, testified before congressional committees about the failures of the American healthcare system. And through it all, Daniel was there. He never pushed. He never pressured. He simply showed up day after day, supporting her work and respecting her space. They had dinner together after late meetings. They talked for hours about their visions for the future. They laughed at the absurdity of their lives, the orphan billionaire and the humiliated nurse trying to fix a broken system. Elena did not notice when respect turned into something deeper. She was too focused on her work, too guarded against vulnerability. But Daniel noticed. "I need to tell you something," he said one night. They were in his office, surrounded by paperwork, exhausted from a 14-hour day. Elena looked up. "What is wrong?" "Nothing is wrong." Daniel hesitated, which was unlike him. He was always so composed, so certain. "I have been trying to find the right time to say this, but there is no right time. So I am just going to say it." Elena's heart started pounding. She did not know why. "I am in love with you." The words hung in the air between them. Elena stared at him, unable to speak. "I know your history," Daniel continued. "I know what happened with Marcus. I know you have every reason to never trust anyone again, and I am not asking for anything. I just needed you to know." Elena stood up. Her legs were shaking. "I cannot do this. I understand." "No, you do not." Elena's voice cracked. "The last time I trusted someone, I ended up on my hands and knees in front of 300 people. I lost everything. My job, my dignity, almost my father. I cannot go through that again." Daniel did not move. He just looked at her with those calm, steady eyes. "I am not Marcus. I know that." "Do you?" Elena stopped. She thought about the past year, the way Daniel had believed in her when no one else did, the way he had given her power instead of taking it away, the way he had never once made her feel small or worthless or beneath him. He was nothing like Marcus, nothing like Victoria, nothing like anyone she had ever known. "I am scared," she whispered. Daniel stood and walked toward her, slowly giving her every chance to pull away. She did not. "Being scared is reasonable," he said quietly. "After what you have been through, it would be strange if you were not scared. But I am not asking you to trust me blindly. I am asking you to let me earn your trust, one day at a time." Elena looked into his eyes. She saw no calculation there, no hidden agenda, just honesty, just hope. "One day at a time," she repeated. Daniel nodded. "One day at a time." She kissed him. It was not like kissing Marcus. There was no desperation in it, no clinging to a fantasy that was already falling apart. This was real. This was solid. This was something she could build on. When they finally pulled apart, Daniel was smiling. "Does this mean you are willing to try?" Elena laughed, surprising herself. "It means I am terrified, but I am willing to try." They took it slow. No grand gestures, no public declarations. They dated like normal people, with dinners and movies and long walks where they talked about everything and nothing. Elena kept her own apartment. She maintained her independence. Daniel never once made her feel like she had to give that up. Her father recovered. It took 8 months of rehabilitation, but Richard Carter walked again. He went back to his shop part-time at first, then full-time when his strength returned. Helen quit her second job. They bought a small house with a garden paid for by Elena's salary at Hayes Medical. "You did this," Richard told her the day they moved in. "You saved us." "We saved each other," Elena replied. But even as her life transformed, she never forgot. The humiliation, the laughter, Victoria's voice echoing in her memory. "See how she crawls." This is what happens when trash tries to rise above its station. The anger never went away. She just learned to channel it. She started quietly. A private investigator recommended by one of Daniel's security consultants. Nothing illegal, just research. What she found made her blood run cold. Thornton Medical Group was rotten to the core. Victoria had been committing Medicare fraud for over a decade, billing the government for treatments that were never provided, inflating costs for basic procedures, denying care to patients who could not pay. The numbers were staggering. Millions of dollars stolen from taxpayers. Thousands of patients harmed by negligence and greed. And there was more. At least 15 patients had died from preventable causes at Thornton hospitals. Equipment that should have been replaced years ago. Staff cuts that left wards dangerously understaffed. Corners cut at every turn to maximize profit. Victoria Thornton was not just cruel. She was a killer. Elena sat with the evidence for 3 days before she told Daniel. I found something, she said. About Victoria. Daniel looked at her carefully. What kind of something? The kind that could put her in prison. She showed him everything. The financial records, the patient testimonies, the death certificates. Daniel went through it all in silence, his expression growing darker with each page. This is criminal, he said finally. This is not just fraud. This is manslaughter. I know. What are you going to do? Elena had been asking herself that question for 3 days. She could go to the authorities, hand over the evidence, and let the system take its course. But the system had failed her before. The system had let Victoria threaten her father's life. The system had let her crawl across a marble floor while cameras rolled. She wanted more than justice. She wanted Victoria to feel what she had felt. The exposure, the humiliation, the destruction of everything she had built. I want to destroy her, Elena said quietly. Not just legally, completely. Daniel was silent for a long moment. Then he said, I will help you. Elena looked at him. You do not have to do this. This is my fight. Your fight is my fight. Daniel took her hands. That woman tried to break you. She almost killed your father. And she has hurt thousands of other people who never got the chance to fight back. This is not just revenge. This is justice. Elena felt tears burning in her eyes. What if it goes wrong? What if she finds a way to escape? She will not. Daniel's voice was steel. We will make sure of that. They spent the next 6 months building their case. Every document verified, every witness contacted, every piece of evidence triple-checked. They hired the best lawyers, the most thorough forensic accountants, the most connected journalists. And they waited for the perfect moment. It came in the form of an invitation. The Thornton Medical Annual Excellence Gala. The biggest social event of the year where Victoria played queen in front of 500 elite guests, where she would receive a Lifetime Achievement in Healthcare award honoring her contributions to the industry. The irony was almost too perfect. Daniel and Elena received VIP invitations. Victoria had no idea who Mrs. Hayes was. In the 2 years since the wedding, Elena had kept a low profile. Her work was known, but her face had faded from public memory. She was no longer the crawling bride. She was just another executive at a successful company. Until tonight. Elena spent hours preparing, not because she was nervous about her appearance, but because she wanted Victoria to see exactly what she had become. The red gown cost more than Victoria's entire wardrobe. The diamonds around her neck were real, a gift from Daniel that she had initially refused. Wear them, Daniel had said. Let her see that you are not the girl she threw in the gutter anymore. Elena wore them. The drive to the gala was silent. Daniel held her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. He did not ask if she was ready. He knew she was. The venue was a grand ballroom in the heart of the city. 500 guests in designer clothes drinking champagne and congratulating each other on their wealth. Elena recognized some of them from the wedding. The same faces that had laughed while she crawled. They would not be laughing tonight. The announcement came as they entered. Mr. and Mrs. Daniel Hayes. Elena felt every eye in the room turn toward them. The whispers started immediately. She heard her name, her old name, rippling through the crowd like a wave. Is that her? The crawling bride? It cannot be. She is supposed to be nobody. But look at her. Look at what she is wearing. Elena walked through the crowd with her head high, Daniel at her side. She felt powerful in a way she had never felt before. Not because of the diamonds or the dress or the billionaire husband, because of what she was about to do. And then she saw Victoria. The older woman was holding court near the stage, surrounded by admirers. She was wearing a blue gown, probably the same shade as the one from the wedding. Her silver hair was perfectly styled. Her smile was perfectly practiced, until she saw Elena. The champagne glass slipped from Victoria's fingers and shattered on the marble floor. Her face went white, then red, then white again. For a moment, she looked like she might faint. Elena walked directly toward her. "Hello, Victoria." Elena's voice was calm, almost pleasant. "Long time no see." Victoria's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "What? What are you doing here?" "I am a VIP guest." Elena smiled. "Surely you knew that Daniel Hayes and I are married. It was in all the papers." Victoria's eyes darted to Daniel, then back to Elena. Her composure was crumbling by the second. "This is my event. You have no right to be here." "Actually, I have an invitation." Elena held it up. "Signed by you, if I am not mistaken." The guests around them were watching now, sensing the tension. Some of them had their phones out recording. "Good." Elena wanted them to record. "Security." Victoria's voice was shrill. "Remove this woman immediately." Two guards stepped forward, but Daniel's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Touch my wife and I will sue every person in this room. My lawyers are already here. Would you like to test me?" The guards hesitated, looking at Victoria for guidance. She was shaking now, her carefully constructed facade cracking in front of everyone. Elena leaned in close enough that only Victoria could hear. "Did you think I would forget? Did you think I would just disappear?" Victoria's voice was a hiss. "You are nothing. You were nothing then, and you are nothing now." Elena smiled. "We will see about that." She turned and walked toward the stage where the event coordinator was preparing for the evening's program. Daniel followed his presence, a silent warning to anyone who might try to stop her. "Excuse me," Elena said sweetly. "I would like to make a special announcement." The coordinator looked confused. "I am sorry, but the program is already set. Mrs. Thornton is receiving her award in 20 minutes. "I know." Elena's smile widened. "But I have some information that might change things." Victoria pushed through the crowd, her face contorted with rage. "You cannot do this. Whatever you think you have, it is lies. All of it." "Is it?" Elena pulled a folder from her purse and held it up. "Let us find out." The room fell silent. 500 pairs of eyes watched as Elena climbed the stage and took the microphone. Victoria screamed for someone to stop her, but no one moved. They were all too curious, too eager to see what would happen next. "Good evening, everyone." Elena's voice was steady, amplified through the speakers. "Some of you may recognize me." The projector behind her flickered to life. The video appeared the one from 2 years ago. Elena on her hands and knees crawling across the floor in her wedding dress. Victoria's voice narrating. "See how she crawls." This is what happens when trash tries to rise above its station. Gasps filled the ballroom. Some people covered their mouths. Others stared in horror. 2 years ago, Elena continued, "This woman forced me to crawl like an animal in front of 300 people. She threatened my dying father's life. She threw my family out like garbage." The video kept playing. Every cruel word, every laugh from the crowd, every moment of Elena's humiliation. Victoria was screaming now. "Turn it off. This is defamation. I will sue you into the ground." Elena ignored her. "But that is not why I am here tonight." The screen changed. Financial documents appeared, bank statements, medical records, death certificates. Thornton Medical Group has been committing Medicare fraud for over a decade. Elena's voice was cold, precise. Millions of dollars stolen from taxpayers. Thousands of patients denied care. And at least 15 people who died because Victoria Thornton valued profit over human life. The room erupted. Guests shouted. Cameras flashed. Victoria was screaming something about lies and conspiracies, but no one was listening anymore. And then the doors opened. FBI agents walked in, a dozen of them moving with purpose through the stunned crowd. They headed straight for Victoria. Victoria Thornton, the lead agent, said, "You are under arrest for Medicare fraud, tax evasion, and involuntary manslaughter. You have the right to remain silent." Victoria's screams turned to howls as the handcuffs clicked around her wrists. She struggled, cursing, spitting completely unhinged. The woman who had ruled this city's elite was being dragged out like a common criminal. Elena watched from the stage. She felt no joy, no satisfaction, just a cold, heavy weight lifting from her chest. And then she saw Marcus. He was standing at the edge of the crowd, pale and trembling. He looked older than his years, broken in ways that were not visible on the surface. Their eyes met, and he started pushing through the crowd toward her. "Elena," his voice cracked. "Please, I need to talk to you." Elena stepped down from the stage. Daniel moved to intercept Marcus, but she held up a hand. "Let him speak," she said. Marcus stopped in front of her. Up close, he looked even worse. Hollow eyes, shaking hands. The ghost of the man she had once loved. "I am sorry," he whispered. "I was a coward. I was weak. I should have stopped her. I should have protected you." Elena looked at him for a long moment. She remembered the man who had brought her coffee every morning, the man who had held her while she cried, the man she had trusted with everything, and she remembered the man who had watched her crawl and said nothing. "You are right," she said quietly. "You should have. I still love you." Marcus's voice broke. "I never stopped." Elena felt Daniel's hand on her back. Steady, supportive, real. "I stopped," she said. "The moment you let your mother destroy me. The moment you chose money over love. You are not a man, Marcus. You are a shadow. And I do not waste my time on shadows." She turned and walked away. Daniel fell into step beside her, his arm around her waist. Behind them, Marcus collapsed to his knees, sobbing. But Elena did not look back. She had wasted enough tears on that man. The night air was cold when they stepped outside. News vans were already arriving, reporters shouting questions. The story was breaking in real time. Victoria Thornton arrested. The crawling bride's revenge. A billion-dollar healthcare empire crumbling. Elena breathed deep. It was over. It was finally over. "You did it," Daniel said softly. "We did it." He kissed her forehead. "What do you want to do now?" Elena thought about her father watching at home, her mother probably crying with relief, all the patients Victoria had hurt, all the families who had lost loved ones to her greed. "I want to go home," she said, "and then I want to keep fighting. There are more Victorias out there, more people being hurt by systems that do not care about them." Daniel smiled. "Then we will keep fighting together." Elena took his hand. They walked toward their car, past the cameras and the chaos and the wreckage of Victoria's empire. She had crawled once. She would never crawl again. The morning after the gala, Elena woke to a world that had completely changed. Her phone had been buzzing all night. Hundreds of messages, thousands of notifications. Every major news network was running the story. Victoria Thornton arrested for fraud and manslaughter. The crawling bride's revenge, a healthcare empire exposed. Elena turned off her phone and stared at the ceiling. Daniel was already awake, watching her. "How do you feel? I do not know." Elena sat up slowly. "I thought I would feel satisfied, victorious, but I just feel empty. That is normal." Daniel pulled her close. "Revenge is never as sweet as we imagine. The pain does not disappear just because the person who caused it is punished." "Then why did I do it?" "Because it was right." Daniel kissed her forehead. "Because Victoria needed to be stopped. Because hundreds of families deserve justice. You did not do this for satisfaction. You did it because it needed to be done." Elena leaned into him, drawing strength from his steadiness. "What happens now?" "Now we wait. The legal process will take months. Victoria has expensive lawyers. She will fight every charge." Elena nodded. She had expected that. Victoria Thornton would not go quietly. But Elena had underestimated just how viciously Victoria would fight. The counterattack came within 48 hours. Elena was at the office when her assistant rushed in, pale-faced. "You need to see this." She pulled up a news broadcast. Victoria's lawyer, a silver-haired shark named Robert Manning, was giving a press conference outside the courthouse. "My client is the victim of a coordinated smear campaign," Manning declared. "Elena Carter, now Mrs. Hayes, has been planning this attack for years. She is a scorned woman seeking revenge against the family that rejected her. Every piece of evidence presented at the gala was fabricated or obtained illegally." Elena felt her blood run cold. Furthermore, Manning continued, "We have evidence that Mrs. Hayes has been embezzling funds from her own nonprofit organization. We are filing criminal charges against her today." The room spun. Elena grabbed her desk for support. That is a lie, she whispered. Of course it is. Her assistant's voice was firm. Everyone knows it is a lie. But lies had a way of spreading faster than truth. Within hours, the narrative was shifting. Social media erupted with debates about who was really the villain. Some people defended Elena, but others seized on Victoria's claims with vicious enthusiasm. She was always a gold digger. I knew the revenge story was too perfect. Lock them both up. Elena watched the comments scroll by, feeling the ground crumble beneath her feet. She had spent 2 years rebuilding her life, her reputation, her sense of self. And now Victoria was trying to tear it all down again. Daniel found her in her office, staring at her computer screen with hollow eyes. They are lying, she said without looking up. I never took a cent from the nonprofit. Every dollar is accounted for. I know. Daniel sat down beside her. And we will prove it. How Elena's voice cracked. Victoria has an army of lawyers. She has connections everywhere. She got arrested in front of 500 witnesses, and she is still finding ways to attack me. Then we fight back. Daniel took her hands. We hire better lawyers. We go public with our financial records. We prove that every accusation is false. And if it is not enough, it will be enough. Daniel's voice was steel. I did not build a $12 billion company by backing down from bullies. Victoria Thornton has money and connections. But we have something better. What? The truth. The next 3 months were war. Victoria's lawyers filed motion after motion, trying to delay her trial, trying to discredit Elena's evidence, trying to shift public attention away from their client's crimes. They subpoenaed Elena's financial records, her personal emails, her medical history. They dug into every corner of her life looking for anything they could use against her. Elena opened everything. She had nothing to hide. Her nonprofit's books were clean. Every donation tracked every expense documented. The forensic accountants Victoria's team hired found nothing because there was nothing to find. But Victoria was not done. The phone call came at 2 a.m. Elena was half asleep when she answered. Mrs. Hayes. A woman's voice trembling. My name is Sarah Chen. I used to work at Thornton Medical. Elena sat up, suddenly alert. How did you get this number? Dr. William Chen gave it to me. He is my brother. He told me you might be able to help. Elena remembered William Chen. He had been a colleague at St. Matthew's, one of the few who had shown her kindness after the wedding. She had not seen him in over a year. What do you need help with? Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I have evidence, things Victoria does not want anyone to know. But I am scared. She has people watching me. Elena's heart was pounding now. What kind of evidence? Patient files? The real ones, not the ones she showed investigators. I was the records administrator at Thornton General. I know where she hid everything. Elena grabbed a pen and paper. I am listening. Sarah talked for 2 hours. She described a systematic cover-up that went back 15 years. Falsified death certificates, missing medical records, patients who had been denied care and dyed their files altered to hide the hospital's negligence. And she had copies of everything. Why did you not come forward before? Elena asked. Because Victoria threatened my family. Sarah's voice broke. She said if I ever talked, she would make sure my daughter never got into college, never got a job, never had a future. I believed her. What changed? I saw what she did to you at that wedding. Sarah was crying now. I saw you crawl across that floor, and I thought about all the patients who died because I kept my mouth shut. I cannot live with it anymore. Elena felt tears burning in her own eyes. You are incredibly brave. I am terrified, but I cannot let her win. They met 2 days later in a secure location arranged by Daniel's security team. Sarah was a small woman in her 40s with tired eyes and shaking hands. She brought 3 boxes of documents, thousands of pages of evidence that Victoria's lawyers had claimed did not exist. Elena spent a week going through everything. What she found was worse than she had imagined. 63 patients. That was the real number. 63 people who had died from preventable causes at Thornton hospitals over the past 15 years. Some were elderly patients denied expensive treatments. Some were children whose parents could not afford the best care. Some were young and healthy, killed by equipment failures or staff negligence that Victoria had chosen to ignore rather than fix. 63 names, 63 families destroyed. Elena brought the evidence to the FBI personally. The agent in charge, a woman named Patricia Torres, went through the documents with growing horror. "This is a massacre," she said quietly. "This woman ran a death factory. Can you use it in the trial?" Torres nodded. "This changes everything. Victoria Thornton is not going to prison for fraud anymore. She is going for murder." The news broke 3 days later. New evidence reveals shocking death toll at Thornton hospitals. Victoria Thornton facing multiple manslaughter charges. Witnesses come forward to describe systematic cover-up. Victoria's lawyer tried to spin it as another fabrication, but the tide had turned. The families of the victims began speaking out. News cameras captured their tears, their rage, their grief. One by one, they told their stories. "My mother died because Victoria Thornton wanted to save money. My daughter would be alive today if that woman had followed basic safety protocols. She killed my husband and covered it up. She belongs in hell." Elena watched the testimonies with tears streaming down her face. These were her people, the forgotten ones, the ones the system had failed. And she had given them a voice. The trial began 6 months after the gala. Victoria entered the courtroom looking smaller than Elena remembered. Prison had aged her. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by a plain gray suit. Her silver hair was thinner, her face lined with stress. For a moment, Elena almost felt sorry for her. Then Victoria looked across the courtroom and caught her eyes. The hatred there was still burning bright and vicious. She mouthed a single word. "Bitch." Elena did not react. She simply turned away. The prosecution presented its case over 3 weeks, financial records showing years of fraud, medical records documenting preventable deaths, testimony from former employees who had witnessed the cover-ups firsthand. Sarah Chen took the stand on the 7th day. Her voice shook, but she did not back down. She described everything she had seen, everything Victoria had threatened. And then it was Elena's turn. She walked to the witness stand with her head high. The courtroom was packed. Cameras were rolling, every eye was on her. The prosecutor, a young woman named Michelle Rodriguez, began gently. "Mrs. Hayes, can you describe your relationship with the defendant?" Elena told the story. The coffee shop, Marcus, falling in love, meeting Victoria, the wedding, the crawl. By the time she finished, half the courtroom was crying. "And what happened after the wedding?" Rodriguez asked. "I lost everything." Elena's voice was steady. "My job, my reputation, my sense of self-worth. My father almost died because Victoria refused to help him unless I submitted to her demands." "Can you describe those demands?" "She wanted me to crawl across the floor in front of 300 guests." Elena looked directly at Victoria. "She wanted to humiliate me to show me that I was nothing. And when I did what she asked, she still threw me out like garbage." Victoria's lawyer jumped up. "Objection. This is not relevant to the fraud charges." The judge shook his head. "Overruled. It speaks to the defendant's character and pattern of behavior." Elena continued. "After the wedding, Victoria's lawyers called me. They threatened to sue me if I ever spoke publicly about what happened. They said Victoria would destroy me if I tried to fight back." "And what did you do?" "I rebuilt my life." Elena's voice grew stronger. "I got a job. I helped my father recover. I found love again with a man who actually respects me. And when I discovered what Victoria had done to those patients, I made sure the world knew." Rodriguez nodded. No further questions. Victoria's lawyer stood for cross-examination. He was aggressive, condescending, trying to paint Elena as a scorned woman seeking revenge. "Is it not true that you harbored a grudge against my client for 2 years?" Elena did not flinch. "I harbored a desire for justice. There is a difference. You married a billionaire and used his resources to attack a vulnerable elderly woman. I married a good man who believed in holding criminals accountable. And Victoria Thornton is not vulnerable. She is a murderer who used her money to cover up 63 deaths." The lawyer pushed harder, but Elena held her ground. Every attempt to shake her only made her look stronger. When she finally stepped down from the stand, she caught Daniel's eye in the gallery. He gave her a small nod. She had done it. She had faced Victoria in front of the world, and she had won. The verdict came 3 weeks later. Guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted. The families of the victims cheered and wept. Reporters scrambled for the exits, desperate to break the news. Victoria Thornton sat frozen in her chair, staring at nothing. The woman who had ruled the city's elite for decades had been brought down by a girl she had once forced to crawl. The judge called for order. "Victoria Thornton," he said solemnly, "you have been found guilty of 27 counts of Medicare fraud, 12 counts of involuntary manslaughter, and numerous related charges. Sentencing will take place in 30 days. Victoria was let out in handcuffs. She passed within 3 feet of Elena, close enough to touch. "This is not over," Victoria hissed. "I will destroy you. Even from prison, I will destroy you." Elena looked at her calmly. "You already tried." It did not work. Victoria was still screaming as they dragged her away. The sentencing hearing was brutal. Family members of the victims gave impact statements. They described the holes left in their lives, the holidays without loved ones, the children who would never know their parents. Elena did not speak. She did not need to. The family spoke for her. The judge sentenced Victoria Thornton to 25 years in federal prison. 25 years. Victoria would be in her late 80s when she was released if she survived that long. It was over. Elena walked out of the courthouse into a wall of cameras and microphones. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Daniel was waiting at the bottom of the steps. He opened his arms and she walked into them. "You did it," he said. "We did it." They held each other for a long moment while the cameras captured everything. That night, they went to her parents' house for dinner. Richard met them at the door, standing without his cane for the first time in months. His eyes were wet. "I am so proud of you," he said, pulling Elena into a hug. "You showed them all." Helen had cooked Elena's favorite meal. They ate together around the small table, laughing and crying and sharing stories. "I wish I could have testified," Richard said. "I would have told that judge exactly what that woman put you through." "You were with me," Elena replied. That was enough. After dinner, they sat on the porch and watched the sunset. Elena leaned against Daniel, her mother on one side, her father on the other. For the first time in years, she felt completely at peace. Her phone buzzed with a message from Sarah Chen. "Thank you for everything. My daughter just got accepted to medical school. She is going to become the kind of doctor Victoria never was." Elena smiled and typed back, "She is going to be amazing." Another message came through, this one from Agent Torres. "We found more victims. Families from other states are coming forward. Victoria's crimes went further than anyone knew. But because of you, they are finally getting justice." Elena stared at the message for a long moment. She had set out to destroy one woman. Instead, she had started a movement. The work was not done. There were more victims to find, more families to help, more systems to fix. But for now, in this moment, she allowed herself to rest. She looked at Daniel. "I want to do more. More the foundation. The advocacy work. I want to expand it. I want to help every family that was hurt by people like Victoria." Daniel smiled. "I had a feeling you would say that. Will you help me? I will always help you." Elena kissed him. The stars were coming out overhead. Her father was humming an old song. Her mother was laughing at something Daniel said. This was what she had fought for. Not revenge, not destruction. Family, love, a chance to build something good from the ashes of something terrible. Victoria Thornton had wanted to break her. Instead, she had made her unstoppable. 2 weeks later, Elena received an unexpected visitor at her office. A young woman barely 20 with dark hair and nervous eyes. She looked familiar somehow, but Elena could not place her. Mrs. Hayes. The woman's voice was trembling. "My name is Lily. Lily Thornton. I am Marcus's sister." Elena felt her body go rigid. She had never met Lily, only heard about her in passing. Victoria's daughter from a second marriage, kept away from the family business, sheltered from her mother's cruelty. "What do you want?" Lily twisted her hands together. "I know you have no reason to trust me. I know what my family did to you. But I need your help. Why would I help anyone with the Thornton name? Because my mother is still dangerous." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Even from prison. She has people, she has plans, and she is coming for you." Elena felt ice spreading through her veins. "What are you talking about?" "Before the trial, my mother moved money, a lot of money, to accounts I was never supposed to know about. She hired people, bad people, and she gave them instructions. What kind of instructions? Lily looked at her with raw terror in her eyes. She told them to destroy you, whatever it takes, even from behind bars. Elena stared at Lily Thornton, her mind racing. Victoria had been in prison for 2 weeks. The trial was over. The verdict was final, and yet the woman was still trying to destroy her. What exactly did your mother plan? Elena's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. Lily pulled out her phone. I found emails, hidden accounts she thought no one knew about. She hired a private investigation firm, but they are not just investigators. They do other things, dangerous things. Elena looked at the screen. The emails were coded, but the meaning was clear. Surveillance, intimidation, and something worse. What is Phase 3? Lily's face went pale. I do not know exactly. But there was a payment, $200,000, transferred 3 days before she was arrested. $200,000 could buy a lot of damage. Elena felt the fear crawling up her spine, but she pushed it down. She had survived worse than this. Why are you telling me? Elena asked. Why betray your own mother? Lily's eyes filled with tears. Because she destroyed my life too. You think you are the only one she hurt? I watched her tear apart my father's second marriage. I watched her drive my stepmother to suicide. I watched her turn Marcus into a shell of a human being. I hate her. I have always hated her. Elena studied the young woman's face. The pain there was real. The anger was real. And now I find out she has been planning to hurt more people. Lily wiped her eyes. Even from prison, she cannot stop. She will never stop unless someone stops her. Elena made a decision. She picked up her phone and called Daniel. We have a problem, she said. Daniel arrived within the hour with his head of security, a former FBI agent named James Morrison. They went through Lily's evidence piece by piece. This is serious. Morrison's voice was grim. The firm Victoria hired has connections to organized crime. They have been linked to several unsolved cases involving intimidation, arson, and assault. Can we go to the police? Elena asked. Morrison shook his head. Not yet. We do not have enough concrete evidence of criminal intent. The emails are coded. The payments could be explained as legitimate consulting fees. We need more. Daniel leaned forward. What do you suggest we set a trap? Morrison looked at Elena. Victoria wants to destroy you. We let her think she is succeeding. We draw out whoever she hired, and we catch them in the act. Elena felt cold. You want to use me as bait. It is the fastest way to end this. Morrison did not flinch. We will have security on you around the clock. You will never be in real danger. Daniel grabbed Elena's hand. Absolutely not. We will find another way. There is no other way. Elena looked at her husband. Victoria will not stop. Lily said it herself. She will keep coming, keep planning, keep sending people. Unless we end this now. I cannot lose you. You will not lose me. Elena squeezed his hand. I survived crawling across a floor in front of 300 people. I survived having my life destroyed. I can survive this. Daniel searched her eyes for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. If we do this, he said we do it right. Every precaution. Every backup plan. I want an army around her. Morrison nodded. You will have it. The plan took 2 weeks to set up. Elena went about her normal routine, but now there were eyes everywhere. Security cameras, undercover agents, tracking devices in her car, her phone, her jewelry. Morrison's team monitored every approach, every stranger, every unusual activity. For 10 days, nothing happened. Elena started to wonder if they had been wrong. Maybe Victoria's plan had fallen apart. Maybe the people she hired had backed out. Maybe the threat was not real. Then Marcus Thornton showed up at her office. Elena was alone when he walked through the door. Her assistant had stepped out. The security guards were down the hall. It was just the two of them. Marcus looked worse than he had at the trial. Thinner, paler, dark circles under his eyes. Elena. His voice was hoarse. I need to talk to you. Elena did not move from behind her desk. How did you get past security? I told them I was your brother-in-law. Marcus laughed bitterly. Technically true, I suppose. We were never actually married. Elena's voice was ice. You are nothing to me. I know. Marcus moved closer. I know what I did. I know I can never make it right, but I need you to hear me out. Elena's finger hovered over the panic button on her desk. Morrison had installed it himself. One press and security would be there in seconds. You have 60 seconds, she said. My mother is planning something. Marcus's words tumbled out fast. I overheard her on the phone before the trial. She was talking to someone about you. About making you disappear. Elena's blood went cold. Lily already told me. Lily Marcus looked confused. She talked to you? She came to warn me. Unlike you, she actually has a conscience. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He stumbled back, his face crumpling. I deserve that. He was crying now. I deserve everything. But Elena, you do not understand. The people my mother hired, they are not just investigators. They are killers. Elena's hand moved to the panic button. They are supposed to make it look like an accident. Marcus was sobbing. A car crash. A robbery gone wrong. Something no one would connect to my mother. And the person she hired, he is already here. In the city. Watching you. Elena pressed the button. Within seconds, 4 security guards burst through the door. They grabbed Marcus and forced him to his knees. Wait. Elena held up her hand. He has information we need. Morrison arrived 3 minutes later. He listened to Marcus's story with growing concern. Do you have a name? Morrison demanded. Who did your mother hire? Marcus shook his head. I only heard pieces of the conversation, but I know how they communicate. My mother has a burner phone hidden in her cell. One of the guards smuggles it to her. Morrison pulled out his phone and started making calls. If this is true, we can trace the communications. We can find out who she is talking to. It is true. Marcus looked at Elena with desperate eyes. I know you hate me, but I could not let her kill you. I could not have that on my conscience. Elena stared at the man who had watched her crawl and said nothing. The man who had chosen money over love. The man who had broken her heart. Why now? She asked quietly. Why come forward now because I am dying? The room went silent. Marcus pulled up his sleeve. His arm was thin-waisted, covered in bruises. Leukemia, diagnosed 6 months ago, stage 4. The doctors give me maybe 3 months. Elena felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness, not compassion, just a strange hollow ache. I do not want to die with this guilt. Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. I do not want my last act on earth to be standing by while my mother murders the woman I loved. Elena did not know what to say, so she said nothing. Morrison's investigation moved fast after that. They traced Victoria's burner phone to a guard named Thomas Reed, who confessed within hours of being arrested. He gave up everything: the phone calls, the payments, the plan. The man Victoria hired was named Viktor Kozlov, former Russian military, now a contract killer for hire. He had been in the city for 3 weeks, studying Elena's routine, waiting for the right moment. Morrison's team found him in a motel room 2 miles from Elena's office. He had photographs of her car, her house, her parents' home. He had a rifle with a scope. He had detailed notes on the best locations for an ambush. He was arrested without incident. When they searched his room, they found a phone with a single text message from Victoria. Make it hurt before she dies. Elena read those words and felt nothing. Victoria's hatred had become abstract, almost meaningless. She was a monster in a cage, lashing out at the world that had finally held her accountable. The additional charges came fast. Conspiracy to commit murder, solicitation of homicide, obstruction of justice. Victoria's 25-year sentence became life without parole. She would die in prison. Elena visited her once. Daniel begged her not to go. Morrison said it was a terrible idea. Her parents were horrified. But Elena needed to see. She needed to close this chapter once and for all. Victoria was brought to the visitor's room in handcuffs and leg chains. She looked ancient. Prison had stolen whatever dignity she had left. Her silver hair was gray and thin. Her designer posture had collapsed into a defeated hunch. She looked up when Elena sat down across from her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Victoria laughed. A dry, rattling sound. You came to gloat. No, Elena's voice was calm. I came to say goodbye. Goodbye. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Are you going somewhere? You are. Elena leaned forward. You are going to spend the rest of your life in a cell thinking about everything you lost. Your money, your power, your reputation, your freedom. And eventually you are going to die alone, forgotten, unmourned. Victoria's face twisted with rage. You did this? You destroyed everything. No. Elena shook her head. You destroyed yourself. I just showed the world who you really were. I should have killed you myself. Victoria was spitting, now her composure completely gone. I should have thrown you off a bridge when I had the chance. But you did not. Elena stood up. You thought making me crawl would break me. You thought taking everything from me would leave me with nothing. But you made a mistake, Victoria. You gave me nothing left to lose. And someone with nothing to lose is the most dangerous person in the world. She turned to walk away. This is not over, Victoria screamed after her. I will find a way. I will destroy you. I will destroy everyone you love. Elena stopped at the door. She looked back at the broken woman in chains. Goodbye, Victoria. She smiled softly. I hope the next 40 years give you plenty of time to think about your choices. She walked out and never looked back. 6 months later, Elena gave birth to a baby girl. They named her Hope. Daniel cried when he held her for the first time. Richard and Helen took turns rocking her, singing old lullabies in voices thick with emotion. The small hospital room was filled with family and love. She is perfect, Helen whispered. Absolutely perfect. Elena looked at her daughter's tiny face and felt something she had not felt in years. Pure, uncomplicated joy. The world outside was still complicated. There were still Victorias out there, still systems that crushed the vulnerable, still battles to be fought. But in this moment, none of that mattered. She had won. The foundation grew faster than anyone expected. Elena expanded the patient advocacy program to 12 states. They helped thousands of families navigate the healthcare system, fight unjust denials, access treatments they could not afford. She hired Sarah Chen as her director of operations. She brought in former Thornton employees who wanted to make amends for what they had witnessed. On the 1-year anniversary of Victoria's sentencing, Elena gave a speech at a healthcare reform conference. 2 years ago, she told the audience, I crawled across a floor in front of 300 people. I was humiliated, destroyed, told I was worthless. I believed it. For a while, I believed every terrible thing they said about me. She paused, looking out at the hundreds of faces watching her. But here is what I learned. They can take your dignity. They can take your reputation. They can take everything you have. But they cannot take who you are. They cannot take your ability to get back up. They cannot take your power unless you give it to them. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. I am not here to tell you that revenge is sweet. It is not. Destroying Victoria Thornton did not heal my wounds. It did not erase the pain. Nothing can do that. But it gave those 63 families justice. It stopped a monster from hurting more people. And it proved something that everyone in this room needs to understand. She leaned into the microphone. You are never as powerless as they want you to believe. You are never as broken as they want you to feel. And no matter how far you fall, you can always get back up. The standing ovation lasted 3 full minutes. Marcus Thornton died on a Tuesday. Elena received the news from Lily, who had become an unlikely friend over the past year. He went peacefully surrounded by hospice workers. His last words were about Elena. He said he was sorry, Lily told her. He said he hoped you could forgive him someday. Elena sat with that for a long time. She thought about the man who had brought her coffee every morning, the man who had proposed by the lake, the man who had watched her crawl and done nothing. I forgive him, she said finally. Not for his sake, for mine. And she meant it. The anger was gone. The hatred was gone. All that remained was a quiet sadness for the man Marcus could have been the life they could have had if only he had been stronger. But he was not, and she had found something better. On the 2nd anniversary of the gala, Elena and Daniel renewed their vows. It was a small ceremony. Just 30 guests. No live streams, no 300-person audiences, no marble floors to crawl across. Just family and friends and a simple garden filled with flowers. Richard walked Elena down the aisle. He was healthy now, fully recovered, stronger than he had been in years. He moved without a cane, stood straight, and proud tears streaming down his face. "You did good, baby girl," he whispered as they reached Daniel. "You did so good." Elena kissed his cheek. We all did. The ceremony was simple. They wrote their own vows. Daniel went first. "Elena, when I met you, you were fighting to survive. You were broken and scared and angry. But you never stopped fighting. You never stopped believing that things could be better. You taught me that strength is not about never falling. It is about getting back up every single time. I promise to spend the rest of my life helping you fight, helping you rise, helping you build the world you deserve." Elena's eyes were blurry with tears. "Daniel, when I met you, I did not believe in love anymore. I thought it was a fairy tale that only led to pain. But you showed me that real love is not about grand gestures or perfect moments. It is about showing up, every day, through the hard times and the good times, through the battles and the victories. You showed up for me when no one else would. And I promise to show up for you every single day for the rest of our lives." They exchanged rings. They kissed. The small crowd cheered. And for one perfect moment, everything was exactly as it should be. That night, Elena stood on the balcony of their home looking out at the city lights. Daniel came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" Everything, Elena said softly. The wedding, the crawl, Victoria, all of it. Any regrets? Elena considered the question carefully. She thought about the pain and the humiliation and the long road back to herself. She thought about the lives she had helped save, the families she had given justice, the woman she had become. "No," she said finally. "No regrets." Daniel kissed her shoulder. "Good." They stood together in silence, watching the city sparkle below them. Elena thought about the girl she had been, the one who worked double shifts at a coffee shop, the one who fell in love with a man who was not strong enough to protect her, the one who crawled across a marble floor while the world laughed. That girl was gone. In her place was someone new, someone who had been broken and rebuilt, someone who had faced the worst the world could offer and come out stronger, someone who would never ever let anyone make her crawl again. Victoria had wanted to destroy her. Instead, she had created her. The phone rang, pulling Elena from her thoughts. She looked at the screen and smiled. It was Sarah Chen. "Elena, I have news." Sarah's voice was excited. "The congressional healthcare bill we lobbied for. It passed. They are calling it the Elena Hayes Patient Protection Act." Elena felt tears spring to her eyes. "We did it! You did it!" Sarah was crying now too. "You changed everything, Elena. You actually changed the law." Elena hung up and turned to Daniel. "The bill passed," she said. "Our bill. It is going to protect millions of patients from what happened to my father, from what Victoria did to those families." Daniel pulled her into his arms. "I am so proud of you." Elena held him tight, feeling his heartbeat against her chest. She thought about Hope sleeping peacefully in her crib. She thought about her parents finally at peace after years of struggle. She thought about all the patients her foundation would help, all the Victorias they would stop, all the lives they would save. It had started with a crawl. It ended with a legacy. Victoria Thornton had forced her to her knees in front of 300 people. She had called her trash. She had tried to destroy everything Elena loved. But Elena had risen. She had risen higher than Victoria could have ever imagined. Higher than anyone who laughed at her that day could have predicted. Higher than she herself had ever dreamed possible. They made her crawl because they thought she would never stand. They called her worthless because they thought she would believe them. They destroyed her because they thought she would stay destroyed. But she did not stay destroyed. She rose from the ashes. She built an empire. She married a man who loved her. She had a daughter who would never know what it felt like to be powerless. She changed laws and saved lives and proved to the world that no one, no matter how rich or powerful, could break a woman who refused to stay broken. Victoria Thornton died in prison 8 years later, alone and forgotten, just as Elena had predicted. Elena did not attend the funeral. She was too busy living. She was too busy teaching her daughter that strength comes from falling and getting back up. She was too busy expanding her foundation to 50 states. She was too busy testifying before Congress, meeting with world leaders, accepting awards for her humanitarian work. She was too busy being exactly who Victoria had told her she could never be, someone. The story of the crawling bride became legend. It was told in documentaries and books and speeches around the world. But Elena did not tell it as a story of revenge. She told it as a story of transformation, of taking the worst moment of your life and turning it into the foundation for everything that came after. She told it as proof that pain is temporary, that humiliation is survivable, that anyone who tries to break you only makes you stronger. She told it as a promise to every person who has ever been forced to their knees. Get back up. Keep fighting. Never let them win. Because the moment you stop crawling is the moment you start flying. And Elena Carter Hayes had learned to soar.